when did you join Peace Church? Kind of tell us a little bit about your history with Peace Church.
Okay, my wife Darlene and I were looking for a church. I guess we both came from a Lutheran background, but and we had bought a house out in Lakeside, and we lived right near the Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd. We tried going there, and it didn't fit our personalities. I guess it was a large congregation, and we had heard from a family member up in Hermantown that they were mentioning the old church in Hermantown, and that they referred to it as a sister church to the old St. Paul's in Duluth, and that it was a predecessor of Peace Church. So I guess it was my thought. I thought, well, why don't we give it a try? So we came here, and it was in the summer, and Greg Flint was here, and I guess that started it off on the right foot right there. He always used to start out with the psalm, "This is a day the Lord has made, let us rejoice and be glad in it." And in the summer also, I think there were about 30 people here and we thought, this is good. we can ease into this. So I believe it was one of the first days that we came, we were greeted by Bill Kohlts, and I had known him a little bit from my work at Minnesota Power, and so he was very welcoming, and then it turns out there were several others from Minnesota Power at the time, Don Cran and Ed Pretz and Dennis Hampshire, and there were probably others that I can't think of right now. So that was nice, and then I got to know Bill quite well, and so that was very nice also. Yes, and I guess we got hooked on Greg's sermons, and the rest is history.
So are there any events or anything that stick out in your mind over the 40 years that were especially meaningful?
Gosh, I can't think of any one thing right now. We enjoyed Greg, and I guess all the pastors that have been here. Kathy, I like Jim. Right now, Pastor Jim is great, I think. But as far as any one thing, boy, it was just, I don't know, it just felt right here. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So if you boiled it down to one word in your relationship with Peace Church, can you think of a word?
Peace, I guess.
So let's talk a little bit about the history.
Well, first of all, I guess the church was started by a bunch of Germans in Duluth, and shortly after the church was underway, there was an economic depression in Duluth in 1873. Jay Cook, who was, a businessman and financier from out east, started many of the businesses and developments in Duluth, and anyway, he was building a railroad from Duluth to the west coast, and he had overextended himself. He had financed much of the Union and the Civil War, actually. He went bankrupt, and so the population of Duluth dropped way down, almost in half, some people say. And so in the meantime, a lot of the people moved because of that, and a lot of the people moved up to Hermantown, to Homestead. So after a number of years, they thought, well, it was so far to Duluth, we need to have our own church up here. So anyway, in 1890, they built their own church, still serviced by the same pastor. But since it was so far away, they had to have a service in the afternoon. And so they made arrangements to have someone from Hermantown come down to West End and meet the pastor at the bottom of Piedmont Avenue. And then he would take the pastor from Piedmont, where the streetcar left him off, and bring him up to Hermantown in a horse and wagon. So that went on until 1946, I guess. And then they closed that church, and they joined with the Peace Church.
Another question I had was, and it amazes me that the first peace bell came so soon after they started the church. Do you know anything about that history of asking for the canon? And
There were a couple different versions of why the bell was sent. One version was that the Kaiser of Prussia had known about the establishment of churches in the U.S. and he wanted to give a gift, I guess, to be made into a canon, to be made into a bell. And the other version was that there was a visiting soldier or someone from Germany who had been to the church when it was first built, and he thought that they should have a bell, and then he contacted the government in Prussia or whatever. So I'm not sure which is true. But
because you've been so active in the history committee, and I think that's the backbone of taking us through the years, do you have any special thought of something in our history that represents what we are today and in the future?
Well, again, I guess it's the theme of peace. You know, from the beginning, having the canon melted down to be made into a bell, a symbol of peace, and the collection of ammunitions to be made into another bell, and then also the Navy, the bell from the Navy ship that was, again, for implements of war being transformed into symbols of peace.
And where are those bells today?
Oh, okay. Well, they're all located in our bell tower. They ring out every Sunday.
so I can't help but think of the German people and how they must have felt when World War II came around.
From what I understand, the anti-German sentiment during the First World War, there were people that wanted to come and take the bell down and have it made into munitions again, and the people, you know, solidly rejected that idea. And
with the emphasis so clearly in your mind and many of our minds on peace, are we carrying that through as you see a thread from the past into the future?
oh, I think so. Reverend Stark, I guess, was kind of ahead of his time during the 70s when he was involved in, you know, war protests and marches and whatnot. So I think, and to this day, I'm sure people are against those things. So,
Were there other pastors that stick out to you over the years?
well, Kathy Nelson, of course, she was here for much of my time here, and I guess I was fortunate enough to be on the search committee for Kathy Nelson, and myself, along with some of the other members of that committee. I mean, we were sold right away on Kathy, and I definitely enjoyed her time here, and I think a lot of others did. I think the church grew a lot while she was here, and it was a good thing.
Was it Reverend Schmidt? That was the Reverend when we built the second building?
Yes, and from what I understand, he was very dynamic and just had big plans for the church right from the start, and was instrumental in, you know, in getting this church built and planning out all the events for the groundbreaking, and he was really a go-getter.
And I remember that he must have had connections in Washington or with the services, because he was able to pull off some pretty impressive recognition of Peace Church and the bells.
I don't know if he had connections or he was just bold enough to go ahead with all these efforts and contact people. He had many ideas and he just went forward with them. And I think that was the name of the whole building was the Forward Movement.